meets great music. Monday to Thursday, 4 to 6 p.m. on Net Radio, taking you above and beyond.
Please, Mr. Officer, use up your wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. Please, Mr. Officer, please, Mr. Officer, cool down your temper. Please, Mr. Officer, cool down your temper. All these years you over
Well, everybody, welcome inside your Drive Time Exchange right here on Near Era TT Radio. And of course, this is where we are joined by journalist Tony Fraser. Tony, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon to you, Sir Charles.
How are you doing?
How's
All right?
doing?
How are you this morning? This afternoon, I should say.
Has the weather treated you over the last couple of days?
Oh, my word. Tony, I tell you the weather. I mean, I've been loving it, in all honesty. You know? Mm-hmm. Yes, I've been loving it. It's been pretty good.
Good.
You know? I kind of saw your message kind of late. So I want you just to give me about 2 minutes. Let me see if I can make the hookup for you, right?
Okay, fine.
All right. So
he hasn't. Nobody has attempted to get in so far, right?
No, nobody. But
right.
give me a minute.
While you do that, give me a moment to talk to our audience about what we expect to happen in a very short while from now. Okay?
Yes, so, go ahead.
This afternoon's program is, centered around the whole business of selecting, appointing a police commissioner to the office and having that commissioner operate in a manner without, being in an acting position, unsure of his or her status and all of the things that go with that. Some time ago, the determination as to who will be the commissioner was left up to the Parliament, essentially the House of Representatives, to make a determination on that. It's the other way around. It was left up to the Prime Minister to make a determination about who is to be selected from a group of people or even an individual as that was given to him or her by the Police Service Commission. The Police Service Commission makes all of the arrangements, interviews or have other agencies interviews the candidates and then makes a recommendation to the Parliament. Previously, as I said, it used to be the Prime Minister alone who made that determination. It was subsequently changed a few years ago, I don't remember the exact year, that the determination will be made not by the Prime Minister, but by the House of Representatives, which essentially meant the same thing. Because if the Prime Minister, who is a political leader and head of the party in power, says so, that is so. Meaning that if a selection of the candidate or candidates is made, then the determination is what it is, left up to the Prime Minister, or indeed, as it has been couched, as the House of Representatives voting in a session about it. Now, the House does not have to accept, as it has happened in the past, a recommendation from the Police Service Commission. The House can either say yay or nay to it. On occasions, I'm not too sure if they have said, maybe they have said nay to somebody who has been recommended. But quite a lot of acting has happened in the job over the period of time. You have had any number of acting police commissioners who may or may not have been selected eventually by the House or by, say, political leader. And therefore, as that difficulty goes on, and you've had periods of acting commissioners. In fact, one of the dramatic instances was when Stephen Williams, I remember him, he was the acting commissioner for, I believe, some 6 years. And he never got confirmed in the position as far as I remember. And then you've had people like James Filbert and Gary Griffith was confirmed in the position, but thereafter, when there was to be a second term, there was all kinds of controversies, and he was not eventually selected by the House or by the Prime Minister, if you like. In the instance of the outgoing, I have to say, because I think Willa here with Christopher has a number of days inside, and I'm not too sure the title has been taken away from her. Certainly, the office, she's not acting in the office, and we have an acting commissioner in the position. What is going to happen is that the now governing party will have to make a recommendation, the Police Service Commission will have to make a recommendation to the House of Representatives, the Parliament, and the ruling party obviously will make a choice. And ruling party in this instance and in all instances means the Prime Minister. He or she will have consultations with his or her members of the House, but eventually, I'm sure in the instance that we're talking about, and in all instances, the Prime Minister will have the final say in these matters. Over the years, the acting
Tony,
situation.
Tony, let me interrupt you just so that you know that I got Mr. Deosaran, okay? So he's right. So whenever you're ready.
So as soon as you're ready, you can turn over. We expect that ASP Dickson will join us. He's in a conference, and he says as soon as it is finished, if it's delayed.
Okay, Tony, I'm kind of losing you and all there. Yeah, Tony seems to have just gotten a little frozen in between there also. Right, Tony, are you hearing me?
I'm hearing you now.
Yeah, I kind of lost you. It got kind of frozen. I don't know if it's the internet where you are.
Yeah, we are back in touch.
Yes. All right, so we
so
have
is
Mr.
Professor Deosaran there?
Yes, he is. Professor, are you there with us?
Yes, I'm hearing you now, but we got cracked up a little while ago.
Okay.
I'm hearing you now.
So he's on the phone or on, online?
No, he's on the phone.
He's on the phone. Good afternoon to you, Professor Ramesh Deosaran. Welcome to the program, sir.
Thank you, and thank you very much. Yes.
Professor Deosaran needs little introduction, but nevertheless, we'll say that he's Professor of Criminology and Social Psychology.
Yeah, we're getting cracked up here. I don't know why.
Yeah.
Right, okay, here we go.
Yeah. I am here, but Tony's internet seems to be giving him a little problem there.
Yeah, you know, it is, yeah.
Yes, I know.
It's a lot of noise. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so I don't know. Yeah. So I don't know why it's making that kind of so you know what? Let me just reset everything. Professor, give me 2 minutes. Let me call you back, and also let me just see.
Yes.
Let me check his internet. Right.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Use of your discretion. I said, please, Mr. Officer, cool down your temper. Please, Mr. Officer, don't you shame off of me head. Time after time, citizens complaining over the radio.
The audio and visual this afternoon.
Yeah, I think we're having a little problem with it, and I don't know, why it's giving that kind of problem. Because you are kind of fading in and out of it this afternoon. I don't know if it's your internet where you are at, or I don't know if it's my internet, but it's kind of coming and going. But
let's hope the technical matters will sort themselves out soon.
Yeah, so just give me 1 minute while I get back Mr. Deosaran, because I kind of cleared him to see if he would also get a clearer position.
So play a little bit of music as we attempt to do so.
Okay.
Color blue. Be careful what you do. people, 'cause the people love you, yeah. Please, Mr. Officer, cool down your temper. Please, Mr. Officer, don't you really hear my family? Use your discretion.
All right, let's see if you can try this again. And let's see. All right, so Tony, you are there, right?
Yes, I'm here. Are you hearing me?
I'm hearing you. Mr. Deosaran, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Are you hearing me?
I'm hearing you a lot
All
better
right.
now. Are you hearing us any better from where you are at?
Yes. Yes, I'm hearing you good now.
Okay, no problem.
Okay. So let's start at take number 2, or is it 3, whichever one. Professor, thanks for engaging in the discussion this afternoon. As we indicated in our first introduction, Professor Ramesh Deosaran is a professor of criminology and social psychology, and has been in the public eye doing research on the criminology aspects of it, and the social psychology aspects of it also. He almost invented the subject and created a department at St. Augustine way back then, and the thing continues to function. He has been, and for the purpose of this afternoon, we want to talk to him about his experiences and thoughts about how this thing of the acting police commissioner can be settled. As we indicated at the start, sorry, listeners, for repeating myself, but we dropped off and on. Just indicates that the process is that the Police Service Commission makes a recommendation to the Parliament. The Parliament makes a determination about it. And, well, it used to be the Prime Minister, and it is now the Parliament or the House of Representatives. Same thing as far as I'm concerned. The Prime Minister is in charge, and his team will not vote against his choice. So that is the determination. The responsibility of the Police Service Commission is to make the recommendations. On occasions, they have depended on local and foreign groups to go through the list of people who have applied for the job, and before the commission makes a determination on it. All right, so Professor, incidentally, we also intend to have with us this afternoon Gideon Dickson, ASP Gideon Dickson, who is president of the Trinidad and Tobago Social and Welfare Association. He has been in a conference, and he said he might be a little bit late, so he will join us soon. Professor Deosaran, you're far more aware of it than I am, and our listeners are, having been in the chairman's job, having been talking and writing about this whole business of putting a commissioner in place. And, we have had some difficulties over the last, 10, 15 years or so, about somebody acting in the role for a long period of time. Stephen Williams acted for 6 years. And then he moved out of the chair, etc., etc. We seem, Professor, the essential question is, we seem to be having difficulties with getting a commissioner in position and having that commissioner operate in a way that will best serve the police service and, of course, Trinidad and Tobago. What are some of the problems as far as you are concerned?
Your outline is quite correct, Tony. You have hit the button on the main essentials. This thing began, as you yourself might recall, in about 2006. It was an amendment to the Constitution. It was a very extensive amendment. It also included, apart from reforming the Police Service Commission, it also dealt with the powers of the police commissioner, a very extensive way. But since 2006, every government that came into office faced serious challenges where the defects in the amendments were vividly exposed in terms of getting a commissioner of police properly installed. You are quite correct in the case of Stephen Williams. Part of his existence there in the police service That happened when I was chairman of the Police Service Commission, and I had appealed to the then government to advertise the post because he was merely acting, and I got problems in that regard. And even before that, I alerted the then government of the deficiencies in the reformed Police Service Commission. Now there's widespread dissatisfaction with the structure and the functions now of the Police Service Commission, starting from the point of the rationale for the reform. The major point was to remove the veto from the Prime Minister. That is, if the commission appointed a police commissioner, and there were other such offices subject to the veto, senior officers in the public service and so on. But we wouldn't get into that now. But the veto that the Prime Minister had seemed to have bothered, in the first instance, the Basti Pandey regime. And there was a lot of quarrel in Parliament over it. So they decided to remove the Prime Minister's veto and establish this elaborate structure of advertising and making recommendations over and over, and then taking it to the Parliament, where ironically, as you pointed out, ironically, and in effect, it landed in the hands of the Prime Minister, who had the last call to appoint or reject on behalf of the majority sitting in Parliament. So all the paraphernalia that went on ended up as if Columbus thought he was heading east, but he ended up west. So it had an opposite result from the intention. And that caused a lot of issues, especially in Parliament, where the names of the nominees were debated, in addition to the names of those nominated on the Police Service Commission. Now, when you have people's names being called in Parliament in a debate, you would have a lot of downstream effects. Some suffered character assassinations. You had a list submitted by the Police Service Commission to the Parliament, and in some cases, number 4 became number 1, and number 1 became number 3, and all sort of confusion, which really exposed the deficiencies if you wanted a straightforward appointment. We wouldn't get in it. Another irony is that on both sides, more recently with the previous PNM government, they complained. Rowley said, it is worse than what we had before. Then I remember a speaker on the other side, it was Wayne Mark, who's complained about the deficiency in the process. So, having heard those 2 points, contrary consensus on the deficiencies of the Police Service Commission, I myself started to intervene. The late Dana Sitahal complained about it. Reginald Dumas complained about it. I remember before he died, our Kenneth Lala, who was a previous chairman of the Police Service Commission, he complained. He wrote me on it. I still have the document. Everybody complained. Everybody who had knowledge and experience and wisdom on these matters complained about the existing structure and functions of the Police Service Commission. So the question now arises in the public interest. We have to look at this matter from the side of the public interest, not what the politicians want. Too many times politicians want things that are to their immediate convenience rather than the public interest. And this Public Service Commission appointment seems to be more in the politicians' interest rather than the interest of the police service itself and the public interest. So we have come to a point where we want to see what will happen now if we have a new regime, because having an acting police commissioner really doesn't give the person in charge the full confidence to act, considering the fact that the Ministry of National Security also have some kind of policy overview. And the public themselves will not have the full confidence they ought to have in the leadership of the police service. So with all these encumbrances around the matter, the Police Service Commission existence, the public will be looking forward to see something being done. The latest that we heard from the present regime is that, well, we we still favor some transparency. That is the debate in Parliament. So what we'll have to do now, when I say we, I mean the public, is to see how well balanced it is, whether the transparency is working productively or whether it has some too many negative consequences to distract from the major purpose, and whether it brings too much embarrassment on the nominees, as has happened every time the names of the commissioners, the list comes up, you will realize the kind of character implications involved in it. So there's time now to strike a balance, I believe, and to move the way forward, but it must be based on experience and not self-serving politics. So, in a nutshell, as it were, there are a lot of issues that Tony, you yourself mentioned. It might come across later on, but right now, that is my summary perspective on this matter.
Mhm. Now, one of the things, Professor Deosaran, is that the impact, all of the goings and comings, and sometimes there are statements, acidic statements coming from political areas, more often the opposition, whichever party is in opposition, must certainly undermine about somebody who has been elected as the commissioner. That kind of thing must surely impact on the mind of a commissioner who has been put in place in the circumstances. So from the start, whether it's an acting commissioner or commissioner. So from the start, the commissioner stands in a difficult situation to operate. Would you say so?
Yes, Tony, I would certainly say so. It is also unfair because if you establish at great expense to it, the higher consultancies and so on, if you have in the Constitution a Police Service Commission, which is in the language of the Constitution, an independent body. So the word independent has become a papi show in this respect. Because if this so-called independent Police Service Commission having 5 independent professionals as a commissioner, well trained, some in sociology, some in business management, a lawyer, and so on. They are appointed there because of the experience and training and independence. So when they make a list and they send it to the president and then the president sends it to the parliament, and then you hear a debate where, as I said before, number 4 comes number 1. What does that say about the work, the status, the reputation, and the independence of the Police Service Commission? If you look at it, that's where you realize the whole thing is a farce, because it means the veto is now in the hands of the Prime Minister, the very veto that they wanted to remove. So this is a great puzzle. This is unprecedented. I had been to conferences of police service commissioners all over the world. They go by different names, but they really oversee the police service. This is the first time we have heard something so convoluted and complicated. And I think my own view is that there is time for a review of it, because it puts people in the commission. I was on the commission, and if I wanted a pencil, I had to go through the director of postal administration. If I wanted a staff member moved or appointed or whatever as an independent commission, I couldn't get it. The DPA is the CEO of the commission, and more than that, the administrative control of the commission. So that's another angle that needs to be looked at. The question really is the Police Service Commission really independent according to the Constitution? Mm-hmm. And given the fact that we have come full circle, thinking we are heading east and we end up west, that is, we hope we would relieve the Prime Minister's veto, and then we have giving it back to him or her. So it shows, in a sense, that the politicians always want to have control. That is one of the disasters in this developing country. They must let go some things for public voice or follow the constitution beyond the immediate interest of the politician. Because one of the powerful underlying reasons is that you do not want too much political interference in the police service, starting from the appointments of commissioners. But no longer is that there. That is still there.
There have also been occasions when we have looked outside of Trinidad and Tobago, both at the level of somebody from some agency, international agency, reporting to the Commission and the Commission making a choice out of that. And then we also had a foreign police commissioner and a deputy at one point in time. So again, in the mix of all of this, we see a lot of convoluted, to use your word, and critical elements of the whole process being warped in a certain kind of way.
Exactly, Tony. You're raising a high order point here. Another point is we are independent, sovereign country, as has been said. And this idea of bringing foreigners into the police service, it does have unexpected consequences. So that's another branch of the large issue. These things don't work, but they keep on doing it. And from my point of view, the repetition, the dysfunctional repetitions, really stem from the desire to control, political control. And that is why the Constitution have the Police Service Commission purportedly as an independent body, but in function because of the amendments. It is really not so. So on the other hand, too, you see, it depends on the kind of constitutional framework we have or the country has. Because take Miami, for example, the mayor could move or insert a commissioner overnight, call them police chiefs, they don't call them commissioner. So that's another level, that is a direct political control. Well, if that is what you want, say so. In other countries, the same thing. There are different power arrangements in appointing a commissioner, but they say so. They say what they want, they do what they want, and they get what they want. Everybody knows. So rather than dealing with the commissioner in a certain way, they deal with the mayor directly because he's the one responsible. So we have to ask the question, I have asked it before, who is really responsible for crime in this country? The politicians or the commissioner? The prime minister or the commissioner? Because of these myriad way of appointing a commissioner here, that is not quite clearly clear. So you have on the political side, people blaming the government, and rightly so, because they have played a part in the appointment. On the other hand, you have them attacking the commissioner, acting or otherwise. And he himself now tells you, well, he doesn't have enough bulletproof vests, he doesn't have enough cameras, he doesn't have enough vehicles. And that has been going on right now, this going on already. The allegation is that the police service didn't have enough uniforms, proper bulletproof vest, and a number of other items that they needed. So it keeps going on and on, and we have to settle this. We need some brains into the process now. People to sit down, apart from the politics, and try and see what works best in this country, given the experiences we have had. And don't repeat the same errors because it suits this person or that person personally. It must be done in the sense of the wider public interest. And that is my view now.
Yeah. Another element of the confusion, Professor Deosaran, is that there have been governments. The most recent government prime minister has, without shame or without hiding anything, wanting to get rid of the service commissions. I am sure that you remember when Prime Minister Robinson took office, he had some spat with Jimmy Bain, who was the head of one of the commissions, and a whole constitution commission was established out of that conflict, and by Sir Isaac Hayatali, which of course went nowhere in terms of the recommendations made. So that there is that other element. Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley has made no secret of the fact that he would like to get, when he was in office, get rid of the commissions. Is that legitimate? Is the whole commission thing a colonial legacy, a leftovers that we should deal with?
To a certain point, yes, we should deal with that, but we have to deal with it properly, not from political fire and fury. For a prime minister to get up in parliament and because something didn't work for him, he's vexed. He's in a high temper. And this is not good. It is not good for him at the present time and for his special purpose. But if we have to do the revision, it has to be done, as I repeating myself, in a wider public interest. Sit down, as the Wooden Police Reform Commission did, as the Hayatali Commission did, as you pointed out, and do it properly. Now, at the same time, when you have a law like that, where you have a group of people in a commission, and you have a political executive on the other hand, there is something that must be considered as well. That is, the executive has come through a fair and free elections. So they have some legitimacy in pronouncing on such matters. But the law doesn't only depend on the law itself. The law depends on who executes the law, the integrity of such persons, the credibility and integrity of such persons. So the execution has two elements. One is the letter of the law itself, and the second one is the integrity, the credibility of the people who execute the law. That is why there is so much intense attention given to the independence of the judiciary, independence of the DPP, and sometimes even that is not quite clear in terms of the actions they take, and the public grumbles and so on. In this case, if you have to review the service commissions, in fact, Wooden did an extensive review, but nothing happened. The PNM got up, its leader got up and said it's like a stab in the back of the PNM. And that's what I'm saying. It shouldn't be in the convenience of any personality or particular group. And the whole thing fell flat. That commission review report by Wooden, chaired by Mr. Wooden, contained some of the most experienced, brilliant minds this country had. De La Bastide, Reginald Dumas, the names are so powerful, about 8 of them. All of them have died now.
Kevin Ryan was there too.
Without any aspect of it properly implemented. And one of the key recommendations was to remove the Attorney General from being a political appointee and appoint what the Wooden Commission call a Solicitor General to advise the cabinet, but the Attorney General must be appointed by the President in a so-called independent way, because the Attorney General was seen and is still being seen as acting in the interest of the ruling party and not in the wider public interest. We have seen that several times. So yes, in answer to your question, there is a need for remedy. But the fact is, some of the remedies have already been proposed due to a subject of further consideration. But it was a start in the correct place and in the correct direction. But we haven't had that. Up to now, the Attorney General seems to be, I wouldn't say a puppet, but he's an instrument of the ruling party. And sometimes that doesn't work for the wider public interest. That is a partisan function that he executes. And he has to, because he's a political appointee. So if you look around, I'm just giving you one example. If you look around, there are a lot of areas that need remedy, that need a review. But we are lazy. We have some politicians who are lazy when it comes to the public interest and very active and diligent when it comes to their own personal interest. You have seen it with the increase in salaries recently, the big jump for the prime minister and the others around him and so on. And nothing for the wider public interest as such, relatively speaking. I don't mind who get what amount of money, but there's something called relativity in a democracy. Things have to be relative. You can't suffer one group and have another group prosperous. That amounts to a kind of dictatorship. So that is another example, and I think we ought to review even the Salaries Review Commission. I hope I'm not stretching the issue too far, but these are elements that need proper consideration. And I think what you're doing, your program, your writing, Tony, has been very helpful too. Like myself, I don't know how far voices like ours reach the public domain for them to activate their interest or to act in their own interests, apart from the little peripheral matters they have at hand, like the whole tribal feeling and responses. You have to go beyond that now, otherwise the questions we are talking about will never receive remedy because we are just floating on the surface rather than digging deeper into the substantive issues that matters in a country that came out of colonialism.
Now, one of the arguments made by politicians along the way, and one certainly made by Prime Minister Keith Rowley when he was in the chair, is that the government has to have responsibility because the government is blamed when the commissioner and the service as a whole do not function in the interest of the wider society, law keeping, as it were, and so on. And therefore, the former prime minister made a big argument about, in fact, that argument goes both ways. One, that there is a certain denial of responsibility for the police service and what the police should do or not do. And on the other hand, sayings that you cannot have a commissioner and a police service in place and the government's hands are tied in the process. So it's a kind of back and forth argument there. How does that sound in terms of getting the job done as far as putting a commissioner in place?
You're quite correct. There are two competing issues here. And that is why in my previous answer to you, Tony, I said that you have to regard the fact that the government in office was freely and fairly elected. And that provides some legitimacy to whatever they do or say, because they are now required to operate within the law, within the Constitution, after being freely and fairly elected. So to cut a long story short, since the government has been blamed, criticized, and held to account for crime, well, let's be honest about it and go the whole hog, as it were. Give the veto back to the Prime Minister without having a big debate in Parliament. And then they'll be held responsible because they have taken the bull by the horns. But if you're dodging and weaving through Parliament and you're coming out this way or that way, and you're getting blamed, and then you're saying, well, you're not to be blamed. Well, because it came from the Police Service Commission, it comes through Parliament, it still ends up in your hands. So I would say, as I've said before, to bypass all this paraphernalia, give back the veto to the Prime Minister. You could make an amendment by saying, well, if he refuses the veto, he could give an explanation. Well, I don't know to whom, but we have to look at that, whether to give it to Parliament or whether to give it to some agency. We will have some reform agencies, but that is transparency too. I think give the Prime Minister back the veto, give him back the veto without having to go through Parliament. And I think that was Mr. Lala's view. Having had the experience, he had one of the commissioners I forget his name. We got into a little dispute, and Manning wanted to fire the commissioner, and Mr. Lala said, "No, you can't do that without due process." And at
Jules
that
Bernard,
time,
I think it was.
pardon me?
Jules Bernard, I think it was.
Yeah, that's right. That's right, Tony. You're quite correct. Jules Bernard. So we have had all these controversies over the years, and I mean, we have to learn from experience, and we're not learning from experience. We're going to have another dispute coming up with the Police Service Commission in a short while, I imagine, because the government going to put forward its people in Parliament, select the person in Parliament, and it it will come to the same thing that we are having over the years. It is the government, in effect, through the Prime Minister and its majority, that elects the Prime Minister, and it's sent to the Police Service Commission for rubber stamping. That's how it works. So if you look at put a cost in this, some bright economists should put a cost. What does it cost to appoint a police commissioner? In one occasion, you had about $2 million paid to a consultancy firm. And yet it goes to the Parliament for the Prime Minister to put his foot on it. So somebody should make a costing of this thing, apart from time, but just the cost of having this process acted upon. So there are many reasons, apart from the matter of democracy, transparency, fairness. There's also an economic issue involved in this thing. And for a country that has to be very careful about its expenditure, all these matters should be looked at to cut costs reasonably.
We heard the Prime Minister of the day say, when asked by a reporter about what has to happen now, given that the past commissioner, well, she probably still is the commissioner until her time is finished, those technicalities apart. The Prime Minister has said that when asked about making changes and so on in the system and structure, she has said, yes, we will think about that in the long term, but immediately we need a police commissioner. So I presume on that basis, she will go through, I don't know, you can tell us how the process goes. Is it that the Prime Minister or the Parliament says to the Commission, go out and look for somebody, or does the Commission take it upon itself to do what is necessary to get a commissioner in place?
From my knowledge so far, Tony, the advertisements had gone out already. Gibson is one of the candidates who applied. You have several persons in the police service who have applied for the job of police commissioner. They have applied to the police service commissioner, police service commission. The terms of reference have been advertised. I think that the police service commission should have its list prepared by now from those advertisements. Which raises another issue. They take too long to do these things. But I believe by now they should have had the list prepared. And as soon as the Parliament is called, it is likely they will submit the list to the Parliament for transmission. So send the list to the President for transmission to the Parliament. So in a short space of time, we'll have, I don't know what will happen now with in the transition. And I don't know which name they will choose. We will soon hear the rank, how the names are ranked, and we'll see how the government deals with the list, which makes it a political intervention. So, and that phrase has to be used because we were always scared, frightened, and wary about political intervention in the police service. But that is what you have in the Parliament now with the list. So we'll see how it goes, and the public might raise their voices and so on. But I don't know if the Prime Minister is already aware of the list. Not yet. She can't be. It has to go to the President first and then come to the Parliament. So we expect in the next 2 or 3 weeks, I would imagine, an appointment will be considered in Parliament.
Okay, so we are talking
If-
with
if-
Professor Ramesh Deosaran, who was chairman of the Police Service Commission some time back. And we are talking about, the conflict and the confusion that have been going on, not only now, but over a long period of time about the appointment, selection of a police commissioner, and so on and so on. And we're talking with Professor Deosaran on that matter. We expect that, Professor Deosaran just said that he heard that Gideon Dickson, that's the ASP, who we expected. I hope we still expect him to come on the program this afternoon. He says he's in a conference abroad, and sometimes it goes on a little bit later, but I asked him to join whenever that is possible. From your experience, Professor Deosaran, all of the shenanigans that go on, and I see Gideon Dickson's name has just come up there. How are you, sir? Hello.
Hey, good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. And the old people saying you're going to live long because your name just called and there you appears.
Thank you very much.
Right.
Thank you very much for having me at this time.
Right. I understand that to greet you was an interesting question. I understand that your name has gone forward as one of the possibilities for the Commissioner of Police. Yes?
That is what you understand.
That's what I understand. Reporters get stories all the time, whether they're true or not, we expose them.
Right. Well, in this instance, you are not correct, and the story that you might have gotten is not the truth. I am not one of the shortlisted candidates.
Okay. Well, we can live with that. All right. So we've been talking with Professor Deosaran, who was, as you very well know, excuse me, a former chairman of the Police Service Commission. And we've been talking back and forth about the conflict that is involved, that has been involved for perhaps 2 decades now, with putting a commissioner in place. And when the commissioner gets in place, there is conflict. And sometimes we put an acting commissioner, etc., etc. Let me ask you a question that I was going to ask Professor Deosaran. How does the instability of having a commissioner in place who is not fully there, he or she is acting, how does that impact on the service?
Well, from time immemorial, there has always been the situation where one could act in the higher office or the higher offices, and that person, he or she, will be required to carry out all the duties and responsibilities appertaining to that office. So that has been there from as far as I can remember, and it continues up to this point in time. As it relates to its stability, it is not a preclude to a person being confirmed into the office. So him or her who is selected to act based on the appointment of the Service Commission by virtue of whether it be their qualifications, their experience, and we had it in the past where it was based on seniority, where they would pick up acting appointments. Those persons are expected to do the best and by extension ensure that we have strategic leadership occurring and the ranks and file will follow whatever the strategic goals are. Mm-hmm. But you remember, the persons who you put there are also human beings too. And because they are human beings, everyone would prefer to operate with a more certain mandate so you could effect change, because today you might just be acting and trying to do change management, and tomorrow, because of the circumstances, you are not confirmed, and everything that you would have worked towards trying to achieve falls back or falls down. So I think that it doesn't over well for Trinidad and Tobago to not have a confirmed commissioner to do the bidding of the people and to the bidding of the organization from a strategic perspective. It is not healthy, right? As an organization, we will be lobbying for us to have confirmed persons so that at the end of the day, that person is sure of his tenureship and it sends a message to the rank and file that we have a person there who is going to be prepared to take us forward.
Professor Deosaran, in your experience as chairman of the Police Service Commission, how do you understand and how would you have seen an acting commissioner of police in office? Does he or she, in your way of thinking, has the kind of capacity or feels assured that decisions are to be made and decisions will be made?
Well, President of the Police Social and Welfare Association is quite correct. The outline he gave is a proper one. But there is one element in it I would like to elaborate upon, if you'll allow me for a minute.
Sure, sure.
He properly said that the criteria for a commissioner should be ability, experience, and so on. That is what the Police Service Commission supposed to discover in the candidate that they recommend. Merit, experience, credibility, integrity, and so on. When they cover these grounds, I would suppose, I was a chairman, I covered those grounds carefully, document the evidence, and you send it to the parliament. So I still wonder, why then would the Prime Minister get up and put somebody who come third or fourth, number one, and bypass the validity of the criteria submitted and the name submitted by the Police Service Commission? We have had that before. And just, somebody come quite low and you move them out above the other ranks earlier on. So I am still a little troubled about this process, this deficiency in the process, that aspect of it. Apart from the fact that all that the president said just now is quite correct. It's quite correct. You need stability in the police service. And as he outlined, that's the way to get it as far as possible.
Has a police commissioner acting, that is, ever come to the commission, and I'm not asking you to call names, and I'm sure that you won't, call names of an acting commissioner, perhaps being brought up short by the commission, the Police Service Commission, for not doing an effective job in one way or the other? Has someone like that come to you, the commission, and say, well, look, I am only operating as an acting commissioner and I don't feel that I have all of the authority of the office to do I suppose, the out of the way things that somebody who is permanently in the job will be free so to do?
Well, there are two aspects to the answer. One is, I don't think any person who is acting commissioner will come and tell the public, well, I am just acting, therefore I will not do the job as it requires. And so I have never witnessed any person committing such a statement to the public. Secondly, it is not a matter of what he says or what he does. It is a question of what the rank and file of the police commission have the proper respect due to him, especially if they know he'll be only there for 3 months or 5 months, because there is need for durability in supervision. A supervisor who has a 1 month tenure will not be effective to the lower ranks as if he is presumed to be there for a year or 2 years. So that is one of the downstream consequences that I will be more careful about. But sometimes, as Mr. Gideon really outlined, you need an acting person for different reasons. There is no malice in that. It is not necessarily inefficiency in the system. Sometimes you really need to have an acting person for many, many reasons. So we'll have to live with that, but we'll also have to ensure that there is a process that would either make him substantive or either get somebody permanently to replace him in the service interest.
Right. Surely, in the circumstances of today, having an acting commissioner in place is absolutely necessary because one was tied up with all kinds of legal matters, and now the term is ended or is about to end officially, and therefore there must be an acting commissioner in place. Ms. ASP Dickson, we've been talking about all of the ramifications and the complexities that a police service commission has to go through to get a candidate into the parliament for the parliament to make a determination about that situation and so on. Do you find from your position that the thing is too politically involved? Politicians get involved, and when in all kinds of things, when politicians get involved, conflict is sure to be part of it. Is there too much politics in this whole business of electing a commissioner to office?
Well, excellent question. I think Mr. Deosaran and myself have gone publicly and said that there is too much of interference in the process to select a commissioner of police. And we have also gone on record and indicated that we would, if we could weigh in heavily on it, it should actually stop at the buck of the Independent Service Commission. There is, on paper, the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service is supposed to be independent, and you would ask yourself, what does independent means? If at the end of it all, it is the government of the day who selects a commissioner of police. When you juxtapose that to the selection of a chief of defense staff, or the selection of a prison commissioner, or the selection of a chief of a chief fire officer, and all of us fall under the same national security banner, well, at least in that instance, you would ask yourself, what is the uniqueness of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service? So history would show that prior to 2006, 2007, when the Act changed, there was a veto power existing in the Prime Minister. Excuse the noise in the background, it cannot be avoided, right? There was a veto power which existed.
We're hearing you loud and clear, so that's okay.
Yeah. The veto power existed in the Prime Minister, and then there would have been a debate at the cabinet parliamentary level, and it was moved from the Prime Minister to the cabinet, where majority vote will go. This in itself has had crippling effect on the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service in terms of transformation, in terms of being able to be as independent as the public expect us to be. At least this is from where we look back at history and look at its evolvement. We have not really moved away much, because all we did was shift where the goalpost was laid to actually having both sides of the cabinet debating as to whether a person should hold that office, whether in a substantive office or to act. And those things ought not to be, especially when the officers who would come through the process, through the rigorous process undertaken by the Service Commission, who is said to be independent. Having done so, the candidates listed in order of meritocracy ought to be given the opportunity, because it is not sending the correct message when you bypass those candidates for whatever reason, unknown to the ranks and file, and probably unknown to the Service Commission, who you would have paid millions, probably thousands of dollars, probably millions of dollars to generate the best person for the job. Those things cannot be correct. And what makes us so different from the other arms of national security? These questions is things that we as a people need to look at seriously. We as an organization, for us to do better and to get different results, we have to change from what is legislated. We have to look at that again. We have to do some introspection, because it has not been working. It wasn't working prior to 2006. It is not working now. If you want to hold the commissioner or the acting commissioner or anyone at that level accountable, then the person identified by the Service Commission ought to be the persons that you put into the office, and you let the process take place in holding those persons accountable, and not necessarily who you put in place because of whatever you as the authority of the day, the government of the day, feels is the best for the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. That cannot be correct. It sends the wrong message. It has a demotivating effect on officers who are currently in the ranks and file, and the thought of they having to go through the process of indignation with some of our colleagues in the not too distant past would have faced by virtue of their names going to the parliament or going to the cabinet and being debated or even being bypassed, it does not leave a good taste, a good flavor on the lips, on the hearts and the minds of the officers who already qualify and don't want to put themselves through this process. So we are doing a disservice to getting the best by just the practice or the process we have adopted over the last 2 decades and probably even before.
SP Dickson, okay, you're fine where you are now, but sometimes you're drifting too far to your left, so you're not fully on screen. You are in the perfect position now. So if you could remain here so that we see all of your face at one time, that would be wonderful. Yes?
Noted.
Yeah. Okay, Professor Deosaran, ASP Dickson has said quite a lot of things there in his comment. One of the critical things he's advocating is that the choice of the commissioner, and if I got you wrong, Mr. Dickson, you can tell me, the choice of the commissioner should be with the Police Service Commission. Is that something that you think is workable in the circumstances?
That has been so before 2006. And I remember the last chairman, Mr. Lala, spoke to me about it. When he saw what was going on with the new amendments to the Constitution, he said, this is too convoluted, impractical, it wouldn't work. And it's so far so said. With Mr. Dickson's narrative, I think people should listen to what he's saying, because he represents thousands of police officers. And if that large number of police officers have a view inside the police service, that view should be properly respected. I think that view should carry, and I would recommend whoever is in authority listen to the views of the rank and file in the police service. Secondly, we have had a very instructive experience coming from Parliament. After all the paraphernalia from the the Police Service Commission recommendations going to Parliament, going to the President and to Parliament. The Prime Minister, the gentleman who effectively appointed the police commissioner at that time, because the person he recommended was number 1. The person he recommended was number 4, if I remember correctly. But he pushed forward that name with the authority he had under the legislation to appoint the gentleman. Only a few years afterwards to jump up in Parliament and say that was the biggest mistake he made in his life. So you take a step backward and ask yourself, well then, what kind of system do we have? If at that level, the gentleman in authority could make the biggest mistake of his life in making such an important appointment, it means the system is not working. The system is unfair, unjust, almost irresponsible to have that outcome at the very end of it. More so the man who was appointed commissioner. Well, that is another story. We wouldn't get into that now. We are dealing with the process. So to reaffirm what Mr. Dickson is saying, we have to look at that particular incident to demonstrate quite creditably that the system is not working and it needs reform in the public interest, not in the politicians' interest.
So you believe that, like Mr. Dickson, that somebody who is selected through a process, and we would assume that it would be a fair and well thought out process by the commission, in the Police Service Commission, is the person best suited to be appointed commissioner, fully away from the selection power of the politicians. Can I conclude that? Both of you gentlemen?
So, I think that's fair enough. I don't know if Mr. Dickson might feel so, but
I totally agree. It sums up what both of us are saying there. And I look a little further to, especially as it relates to just the appointment to act. We have witnessed there's laws in the Trinidad and Tobago Constitution which speaks to how acting takes place. And however, it is only in the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service we have the issue at the helm of the organization when an acting appointment comes up that we have to go through the rigor of the process to get someone to act. Now, we must commend the Service Commission within recent times for doing a legal notice and creating where persons will be selected to act over they will create a merit list that will hold firm for at least 1 year, coming out of another process, a similar process that goes on with selecting someone for the confirmed rank. They have undergone this, and they will hold a list that will run parallel to your substantive list. And from there, if an acting appointment comes up, you'll be able to put someone to act. But then again, the law itself, as much as they might have the person, let's take, at this point in time, there's no parliament. So with there not being any parliament operational right now, if a void comes there for whatever reason, it means you will have to convene parliament. The name will have to go to the president again, and then go to the parliament, and then parliament to debate as to whether candidate number 1, 2, 3, whatever the case is the best to act which is for a short period of time in most instances, and then it will be sent back to Service Commission to appoint someone to act. That could not be that cannot be correct. That cannot be correct. It's an acting appointment, and in any other institution in Trinidad and Tobago, once the vacancy comes up and you have the eligible person there based on skills, qualification, experience, meritocracy, that person is placed there until the substantive office holder has been selected. So what makes us unique? And that is the question we keep asking. And it does not augurs well for the ranks and file.
So I am sure that Professor Deosaran and yourself, ASP Dickson, have looked at other territories in the Caribbean to find out how they go about, what's the law with regard to the selection process of a commissioner. And indeed, not only in the Caribbean, but in the Commonwealth, where there are similarities of the legislation and the processes and so on. Professor Deosaran, what can you tell us about similar instances or similar processes that have been adopted in the rest of the Caribbean and the Commonwealth?
Before I get into that, I want to refer to something that Mr. Dickson properly said. I remember when the legal notice came to appoint an acting person to act as commissioner. There was a big argument over it. And I remember Mr. Russell Martino, senior counsel, telling the opposition that we don't need to come back to Parliament to make an acting appointment because there are instances of emergency and necessity that will require a quick appointment for somebody who's already qualified in the ranks. But that didn't go through. So we remain stuck with a legal notice, I forget the number, in reference to what Mr. Dickson is properly now saying. That is, we should correct that. And he also raises a very important issue. A very important issue. How come the Public Service Commission, the Teaching Service Commission, the Judicial and Legal Service Commission, all these other commissions don't go through the nightmare that the Police Service Commission goes through with its function and its appointments? So we have a zigzag system we're running. We have a political system running that is unsuitable for its purpose. And we remain still colonials in our mentality. We haven't dislodged ourselves from the colonialism that we experienced. I thought I am beginning to see that we are a bunch of political cowards in trying to take the bull by its horns properly and make this system a more democratic, efficient one. So I refer to Mr. Dickson again. I think he's quite correct. With respect to the other countries, I told you that the Miami experience and in other states, the mayor has the power. They have a management body. They don't go to any parliament and so on, legislator. The mayor has the power. Quick, expeditious, but he's accountable because they could remove him very easily too. I think Guyana, I had looked at Guyana and Jamaica once, but I don't think they are as stringent as ours. They have a police service commission, but it doesn't have all the brouhaha that we have in Parliament. That's as far as I can go because I will have to refer in greater detail to the legislation in those countries. But as far as I remember, the top of it, they don't have all these complexities and convolution that we have in our system locally.
Yeah. SP Dickson?
Yeah. In relation to the question posed, my response will be one where I think that oftentimes we look at other jurisprudence
Sorry, Mr. Dixie, you're drifting too far left again. Go back to center.
Sorry,
Right?
sorry,
Yes,
sorry about
that's fine. Yeah.
that. Uh, this is the first time I'm doing Zoom on my phone, so you'll have to forgive me.
That's all right.
Right?
Mhm.
I I say, oftentimes in Trinidad and Tobago, I think we have an inferiority complex, and I make no apologies for saying it. We would prefer to shop outside to get whatever results we are looking for, and sometimes we have the people with both the capacity and the capabilities right here, and we don't pay them any homage and we don't respect what we have. So we end up in situations like this. The the fact remains is that if we do an intrinsic evaluation of what have been occurring for the last 20 years, we don't have to shop abroad to know that it has not been working. We just need to tweak what we have and make it more effective and more applicable. And the only thing you can afford to, the only thing you would lose is really nothing, because you have done something for how much years this way and you are not satisfied with the results. There is nothing wrong with trying something else or trying something new to get either the same result or a better result. I often use the phrase 2 plus 2 is 4, 4 plus 0 is 4, 8 minus 4 is 4, 4 plus 3 plus 1 is 4. There are different ways to do the same thing and get results. But we are not making any attempts to change our trajectory because we maintain the same status quo. So as it relates to foreign territories that we might be able to compare ourselves to, I cannot speak definitively off the bat. I would have to get back to my research data. But when we speak, is because we are looking both from a theoretical perspective, we know what the law says, and we are looking from a practical perspective when it is applied. And if you marry theory with practicality, you would see that therein we can resolve our issues without going very far. But we don't have, I don't know if we don't want to exercise that will as a people to change something that we see not working for us. We just prefer to maintain it, and that will cause us to always have the issues that we are facing and confronting and not hold people accountable, because you would always have an excuse coming now. So we have to change our mindset and change our legislation to get the results we're looking for.
Yeah. ASP Dickson, I have to presume that you're speaking for your members, meaning the senior members of the service and people a little bit below that and all of that. How do they feel about all of the goings on that we've been having over the, as we say, last 2 decades?
Well, yes, when I'm speaking, I speak on behalf of the members, and not just necessarily the senior members only. I also speak on behalf of the junior members who are actually elevating themselves and putting themselves in a place where they would want to use the organization as a career path. They have already choked up a body of work as young professionals, and they are looking to the higher offices because that is why they are going through the promotion processes at all the levels. But I have had the communication with senior officers who are in the first division, and a lot of them have taken a position that they are not submitting themselves to the rigor associated with the public spectacle of selecting a commissioner of police, because they did not, this wasn't a political race that they signed up for. They did not sign up in a party for election. They came to work. Hold 1 second, sir. Hold 1 second.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's what.
when they signed up, they signed up as young officers, and they would have worked their way up. Young officers, young public servants work their way up. And though they understand that you have to apply for the post of commissioner and deputy commissioners of police, for what they have seen taking place within recent times, the indignation associated with the applying for it and being shortlisted and being bypassed and being debated on, when all you did was do your work to bring you to this point, it is not encouraging. It doesn't serve as a motivating factor. It is now causing persons who have the ability to look outside of Trinidad and Tobago so the organization will experience a brain drain as a result of what is taking place here. And then one might say, well, then the organization might need to look at somebody who comes from outside of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service for them to be more impactful and change the dynamics of what is taking place. The truth be told, when you look at just to train an officer from being a civilian into a constable, and he goes through all the different levels in the organization, the amount of millions of dollars that were spent on that officer. When you lose that person over time who has gained so much experience, your organization takes a hit. It takes a significant hit. The monies you would have invested as a country, as an organization, the officer also takes a hit. But we are not seeing it that way. And that is why officers now, we have a lot more qualified officers in the ranks and file of Trinidad and Tobago Police Service who are now exploring their options in other institutions and even out of the country. And a lot have to do with our promotion system and even our appointment system to the rank of commissioner and deputy commissioner of police.
Yeah, yeah. You know, as you talk about the impact on officers whose names go forward to the parliament, or whose names have been raised as a potential commissioner. In some instances, I remember James Filbert very well, as that he was almost publicly disgraced by the then Attorney General, Alan Ramlogan. And of course, you've had people at the other side, the political other side, the People's National Movement, have done the same to candidates who they may have felt in some way or the others are not fit for the job, but they move from making such accusations, such statements which they're entitled to in terms of making a judgment about the officer's ability, into, as we say, a kind of movelang of the officer, drag his name through mud in the circumstances. That must be a demotivating factor. Yes?
Yes, it is. It is. So that is why I could refer to, we have had some instances within the not too distant past where officers who all they did was sign up for the job and submit themselves as worthy candidates, went through the vetting process with the Service Commission, ended up on the short list in very high order for consideration, and they would have been bypassed. It would have been bypassed. And that doesn't over well for those persons, because now, look what happens. If the person remains in the organization, you have a person who now, because he's a human being, he could be a hurt person. Hurt. No fault of his, submitted himself to the process. Someone else who finished lower than him or her was confirmed into the rank, and you remain in the rank, knowing fully well that both of you all went through the same processing. and you finish ahead of that person, and that other person, because of whatever reason, and reasons untold to you, unknown to you, would have been selected. That cannot be correct, especially when we are in a society that speaks to meritocracy is the order of the day and the way in and direction in which we go. It cannot be meritocracy conveniently. It has to be something that when you do your evaluation, you try and test it. These persons withstand the scrutiny and would have elevated themselves to the top. You ought to give them the opportunity, and you have to give them the support. And if they fail with the opportunity and the support, then you could look to someone else, but not to give them the opportunity and then you're expecting them to go back in the ranks and file and operate as normal because you're a professional. But those who judging them did not operate as professionals. But you want that man.
Yeah,
Right. So
another element on the other side has come into focus recently, and while I did not invite you to talk about that, it depending on what you've just said, clearly it put me to thinking that the police sometimes, senior officers, you can't talk about the service as a whole, but senior officers recently went to the point of arresting and accusing a sitting commissioner of police of crimes and whatever else. And turns out that the investigation was not properly done according to the DPP, and therefore it's a certain amount. I am sure that the commissioner has gone out of office with the strokes on her back, as it were, and the strokes which were put in without justification. So we're talking about other people doing it to the police service, but in this instance, the police did it to the police, right up to the level of the commissioner.
And you are correct to a great extent. You are correct to a great extent. I might not agree with the full representation. What I would want to say is this. We are not a perfect organization. And not being perfect means that there's opportunities to try to address some of our shortcomings. What occurred over the last 5-6 months there with the substantive office holder and the fact that an investigation occurred and an arrest took place, suspension occurred, we ought to learn as an organization how to treat with instances of that nature. We ought not to be bringing the office into disrepute. There are different ways you could do things and get the results you're looking for. But that is on one side. On the other side, we have over the years and for years been doing the same thing to our colleagues in the same ranks and file. And that in itself is injurious on the organization. Now, if it is an officer would have gone against the ethos of the organization and would have committed any criminal act, we, the association, wholeheartedly supports any investigation that will rid the organization of those persons. In the same breath, we are also saying every person, notwithstanding him being a police officer or not, but every single citizen of Trinidad and Tobago ought to be treated with a level of dignity. So it is not what you do, it's how you do it that will be able to gain respect both internally and externally in our operations and in our delivery of service to members of the public. So, that being said, yes, I agree with you. We have done some injury to ourselves, and our head not in the sand. On the other hand, we have to do a lot more to mitigate those circumstances. We have to change the culture in terms of what we do, because it should be something that when you give your service, your delivery of service, whether it is to your internal customers or to your external customers, everyone feel that their rights was not infringed to the extent that you oppressive to them. It must be a direction we are prepared to take as an organization, evolving and transforming in the same breath and bringing a higher level of service to the members of the public.
Professor Deosaran, I'm sure that you have a comment, a view on the impact on the police service of the recent hiatus, so to speak, with the commissioner, the then commissioner, being questioned and detained and all of that. And while it has been said, even by the DPP, that the police as a unit has the power to do such a thing right up to the commissioner, surely the commissioner should have been given a little bit more movement space, as it were, and that the investigations should have been more thorough before that kind of decisive action took place.
Well, naturally, Tony, this issue involving the Commissioner of Police position did raise a lot of concern in the public domain. Naturally, that's natural. It's like investigating a prime minister or a chief justice or somebody at the head of the institute. So it caused a lot of talk, headlines, and so on. But I think due process worked to a point. The DPP had a role to play. He looked at the evidence. He did stay on the face of it in terms of leading to the arrest. There was a prima facie condition, which he said was all right, but to go further than that, it didn't meet the threshold. The matter went to the acting police commissioner, and he said, well, he was satisfied that the matter is now closed. I myself, I'm satisfied with the due process used. I think what was required was inquiry, gathering evidence, testing the strength of the evidence, and the matter is now closed. But it did raise public concern, naturally. But now the public should see that, well, things went through the due process elements, and the lady is now on vacation with a new appointment now being pursued by the opening of Parliament. And so the police service will presumably be restored in the way it's supposed to operate. So that is as far as I would go. I don't wish to get into the legalities and the other issues that are peripheral to these substantive matters. So I will leave it there for now, Tony.
Anything lost by way of reputation, by way of investigative capacity? Because people have said, if that can happen to a police commissioner, far more for the person on the road who may have no chance whatsoever to recover in this situation.
That's an interesting perspective. On the other hand, it tells you that the system is strong enough to arrest anybody who commits an offense if the evidence is there. And until the evidence is proven otherwise, people are innocent until proven guilty. So it shows to me that from cook to captain, the system is working.
Okay.
That is one other way of looking at it.
Yeah. I think that's a fair enough comment. It shows that no one is above the law. And
so to speak, yeah.
if the evidence, I don't know if evidence is too strong a word, points in a certain direction, then the police have a responsibility to take action. Yes.
Yes, that's the point. Yes,
Yeah.
that's the point.
All right, gentlemen,
The
as we
question, though,
wind down,
the,
I want to go to each one of you with a kind of final comment about all that been talking about. The most important thing being, how do we get to a position where a commissioner can be appointed without all of the razzle dazzle impact going on contention back and forth, and people's name being dragged through the mud because they have applied or been selected, for that matter, for a position in the service. Let me start with Mr. Dickson, ASP Dickson. How do we conclude this discussion, this finding, as it were?
I think both Mr. Deosaran and myself, we alluded to the fact that we have a system right now. It is not working. We have the data to show that it has not worked. Our argument will be for us to revisit what is there constitutionally and ensure that the buck stops with the Service Commission, and then you hold that body accountable for either the successes or the failures of the commissioners and deputy commissioners of police. I think that is
sorry, before you go ahead, who is to hold the commission responsible for that if something goes wrong?
Well, the commissions are appointed by the president, right? And if the commissions are appointed by the president, then the commissions ought to report to the president, and there should be some process of the information sharing there that will get back to the cabinet of the day. But then it also now moves the onus away from just the government of the day or the commission of the day. You know that an independent body would have selected these persons, and the independent body must account for their stewardship. I think that is a way, or it is an opportunity for us to do the thing differently and examine those results over time too. Just like how we have all this data over 2 decades to look at.
Professor Deosaran, do you think that the politicians are strong enough, mature enough to allow this process to go through without them dipping their fingers in it, as it were?
well, that remains to be seen, Tony. If you use the word strong, that puts the question in doubt. They have not been strong to fulfill their constitutional purpose as it ought to be served. That is my view. I have found politicians are too self-serving and they get away with it, which brings me into my larger point, which perhaps I will raise again some other time, somewhere else. Parliament itself is a fake in terms of appearing to be democratic. How could you have a democratic parliament when the executive that makes and implements policy sits side by side comfortably in the legislature, the body that is supposed to seek accountability from the executive? What kind of parliament is this? So all the questions we're asking here, if it does go to parliament, and it will do, they will do, this is the result. The executive will control the outcome by passing, squeezing, overcoming the executive, which is the body supposed to be under the Westminster system, under separation of powers, the body to hold the executive to account. But whatever the executive does, with or through the Police Service Commission, they will defend it and get away with it. except for the special case of special majorities. But generally, our parliament, Tony, reflective of a fake democracy. And we got to start from there, or either start from the ground level and reach up there as you would in Constitutional Reform Commission try to do. The commission was not just a legal document, it was a sociological document that dealt with how the people ought to relate to those that they elect, and how those that they elect ought to be accountable to those that elect them. So we have to get back to those grassroots issues, Tony. That is my closing remark.
Yeah. And it's a powerful remark there. And what Professor Deosaran is saying is that this separation of powers between the executive and the parliament, the lawmaking body of the country, and the institution which carries out the laws, meaning in the process of doing whatever is required, there has to be a serious separation which does not exist at this point in time. Gentlemen, we want to thank you very much. I see these kinds of sessions as being important to inform the population. Sometimes the population simply goes on the basis of what one political side, its side, says, and ignores the other side. And there needs to be some kind of institution which we in the media think is our responsibility to bring information and education to the public. And we thank you. We can't do it by ourselves. We have to depend on people like yourself, Professor Ramesh Deosaran and ASP Dickson, Gideon Dickson, for talking to our audiences this afternoon. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Tony.
Thank you, Mr. Professor Deosaran. Enjoy the rest of the evening.
Thank you, Gideon. Thank you. Keep it up. Keep it up.
Okay, sir.
Okay.
All right, Sir Charles. This is where we leave it for this afternoon. Just to say that tomorrow we have an interesting program which deals with taxation. Not only about the Trinidad and Tobago Revenue Authority and so on, but also with the whole process of taxation. There is a view expressed by one of the persons who will be here tomorrow, Nigel Gideon, and he has written a couple books on the issue of developing a tax around the occupation and possession of land and what you do with it. It's not his original idea, but something that goes back more than 200 years in terms of its articulation. So we're going to have him, and then we're going to have a Trinidadian who has been working in the World Bank, an economist, for a number of years, 10, 15 years, and perhaps more, Derek Brown, to talk about what he thinks are the best options for taxation purposes in the country. So we leave it there for the moment, Sir Charles.
Thank you very much, Tony. I do have a good afternoon. I'm looking forward to hearing you tomorrow. Right? People, this has been your Drive Time Exchange right here on New Era TT Radio.
Please, Mr. Officer.